I'm Mark Ramsey. I am so excited to be here with David Plotz because David Plotz doesn't know this, but he's a hero of mine. David is the editor-in-chief of Slate.com, but he is also, much more importantly in my opinion, David, one of the hosts of one of my very favorite podcasts, the Slate Political Gabfest. Thank you for being part of that and part of my life every week for so many years, David, first of all.
Well, it is. I love hosting the Political Gabfest. I love doing the Political Gabfest. So if you're enjoying it, all the better. I would probably do it if no one was listening. But the fact that people listen and they like it is incredibly gratifying.
And I want to talk to you about that because, you know, Slate is fundamentally not about podcasts. It's about, you know, the editorial content that you create online. And I have to ask you the question up front, which is, before we get into the initiative that you guys are doing, which is the real motivation for this conversation, why podcasts at all?
Well, I think I disagree with the premise that you framed it with, that Slate is not really about podcasts. It's about the editorial product. The podcasts are central to our editorial product. And the reason podcasts are central is that podcasts connect most vividly, most deeply with our audience. So that while it's true that our podcast audience is a small fraction of our overall audience, Slate has about, in March, we had 32 million uniques, and our podcast audience is, you know, less than a million. It's in the mid hundreds of thousands listen to our podcasts. But those hundreds of thousands of listeners are incredibly loyal. They spend tons of time with us. They know us personally. They are heavily invested in our success in a way that some of the 32 million, the 31 million, 31.7 million, some of those people are just flyby people. So our plan, we want to have the largest possible audience we can for the print product, for the non-podcast portion of Slate. And we want to have many of those readers be super loyal and super addicted. And we have tons of super addicted, super loyal readers who never listen to our podcast. But we also want to grow that podcast audience because it's an audience which will spend time, and we hope will spend money with us as well.
Well, your correction, I think, is well taken, because what you're really pointing out is that the podcast is not a separate thing or a subsidiary thing to the larger brand called Slate. It's really central to the brand because the brand is essentially, at its essence, transmedia cross-platform, right?
Right. We do, of course, articles. We also do video. We do podcasting. We are busy on social media. We do live events where we occupy any space where we potentially have someone we can talk to or write to.
Which I think is a critical point for anybody to realize who's in any so-called vertical category, like, say, radio or television, that in fact the idea that you guys do live events, which are always very well attended, and presumably there's money to be made there to support the events and the other activities of Slate, that's a legitimate way of monetizing the brand, is it not?
Oh, the events are?
Yes.
The events are absolutely a legitimate way. They are most of the vast majority of Slate's revenue continues to be from advertising, particularly from brand advertising, but all sorts of online advertising. But increasingly, and I guess this is the main topic of our discussion today, we are looking for other ways to get our readers to contribute. So we've long had a very successful Amazon affiliate program within Slate, so that people who are sent over to Amazon from us we get a percentage of the sale that they accrue over at Amazon. So that's an indirect way, but we're looking at ways for readers and listeners to directly give money to us, whether it's buying merchandise from us or attending events for us, or now a membership program called Slate Plus that we've just launched.
Right, and that's what I want to talk to you about. Now, overall, your podcast, you said, are you aggregating the podcast in terms of the number of downloads, the number of listens that are in the mid-hundreds of thousands? Is that an aggregate?
In aggregate, we do on the order, I think, of 2.5 million downloads a month, and it's probably spread out over, I would guess it's spread out over somewhere between 200,000 and 400,000 different people.
Okay.
That's just a kind of guess.
Okay. So your new initiative is called Slate Plus. What is Slate Plus?
Slate Plus is a membership program within Slate. It's a program designed to appeal to people who are very big fans of the writing we do or the podcasting we do. It is not a paywall. So we're not taking any content that has appeared in Slate and blocking it off. We're not setting up a meter which will toll after 10 stories in that you can't get it anymore. We're not blocking off the podcast to people and making them pay for anything that they've ever gotten for free. So whatever has been free on Slate remains free on Slate. What we've done is we've added a series of extras, and some of the extras are extra content and some of them are extra features. So for example, in the content arena, we're doing an extra bonus GabFest segment or bonus segment on a bunch of our podcasts. We are doing extra kind of inside dope Slate content. So for example, there was a feature that went up today on Slate Plus, which was our Supreme Court correspondent Dahlia Lithwick talking about what it's like to actually go into the court and report. So someone who's a real insider might really want to care about that. Or we did a kind of internal exchange about Slate's profanity policy, where me and a couple of my editors debated whether our profanity policy was right or not. So that's a kind of insiders extra content. Then there are features like you can get our podcast ad-free now. So if you're a subscriber, you'll get ad-free podcasts. You won't get any pagination on Slate. So a lot of readers hate the fact that if you go to a long story on Slate, you have to click through to a second or third page. Now, if you're a Slate Plus member, it's all single page. You'll get discounts to live events. So if you were someone who wants to attend one of our cocktail parties or one of our live GabFest or any other live event, you get a very significant 30% or even higher discount on any live event. You'll get discount on merchandise, Slate merchandise. You will get, what are some of the other nice, there's an improved commenting platform, or the way the comments are displayed is different for Slate Plus members. And so the appeal, which I assume you're going to ask me this, so I'll just answer the question. The case we want to make, and also you can get a mug. You'll get a mug if you subscribe to an annual membership, and it's very cheap. It's $5 a month or $50 a year, and you can try it for free for 2 weeks.
You don't send out the mug. You don't send out the mug until after the 2-week trial, though.
The mug is not till after you. Yeah, the mug actually hasn't arrived yet. The mug is coming in June, so people will get their mug a little bit later. If you've signed up for a mug, you're gonna have to wait a little bit. But it's a cool mug. The appeal of it is severalfold. One, we know there is a group of people who love Slate, who spend a lot of time with Slate, who just want to give us money. They welcome the chance to give us money. They don't want, if we never asked for it, they would never voluntarily send it. But we're giving them a chance to sort of show their commitment to pay us back for the wonderful time they've spent with us over the years. And we want to make it easy for them to do it and make them feel valued and honored. So that's one group of people. A second group of people are people who are doing it purely for the utilitarian calculus, that there's an exchange of value, that we're giving them a physical good in the case of a mug or these extra bonus podcast segments, and that they value that at more than what we're charging them for it, or it's what we're charging them for it, and therefore they think they're getting a good deal. And that's another set of people. And then there'll be people who have individual motivations throughout. I think there will be a segment of podcast listeners who really like the idea of some extra podcast segments and may be willing to experiment with paying for us to give the extra part of it. There are people who are hardcore commenters on Slate who like the idea that there's better commenting function and they may pay for it. But Slate is not a utility. We're not like the Wall Street Journal or ESPN or Consumer Reports, where you use us for specific useful information that you trade on, you bet on, you buy on. But we're an entertainment, and so we want to give people who get pleasure from us the chance to support the journalism that we do and deepen their relationship with us.
So if there are a few 100,000 people accessing the podcast for Slate, what is your definition of success over not immediately, but over the long term for Slate Plus? I mean, what fraction of that 200,000 do you because all of these elements that you've discussed have a cost to them. They have a real cost. So you must have done some math. What is your expectation of success? Well,
the math is private, so I'm not going to give you any specific numbers. But as you say, so there are two groups actually. There's the group of the podcast listeners, the 200 to 400,000 people who listen to our podcast, and then there are the people who read Slate and never listen to our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, of the 30 odd million readers of Slate, probably somewhere between, I would say, 500,000 and 1 million who are serious readers, and maybe 250,000 who are really hardcore readers. So we take the 250,000 who are hardcore readers and the 250,000 who are hardcore podcast listeners, assume there's some overlap. So you have a pool of maybe somewhere between 200,000, 400,000 people who are, 250,000 and 400,000 people who are really hardcore devoted Slate fans. And if we can get a significant fraction of those people, or if we can get a meaningful fraction of those people to become Slate Plus members, I think it will be well worth it. It's already well worth it. It already feels worth it in the sense that the people who signed up, I think, are appreciating the deeper commitment. I mean, we're only a week in, but that's my sense of it so far.
Well, I love your phrase, the group who welcomes the chance to give us their money. I love that. I think more brands with loyal audiences should feel that way. Now, let me ask you a question you may not have the answer to, which is, why do you think, I mean, it's very thoughtful what you've created, Slate Plus, but it's not brain surgery. Why do you think that more brands with a stake in audio, public radio, non-commercial radio, whether it's Christian or public, commercial radio brands, commercial radio shows, why do you think that more brands out there with a stake in audio don't develop their own version of Slate Plus?
It's a very good question. I think National Public Radio has a model, and because they're non-commercial, I think they've developed their model in a certain way that has been successful for them in many local stations. Not every local station, but certainly where I live in Washington D.C., WAMU has been incredibly successful at extracting money from people. So I don't think that public radio has failed. You may disagree with me. And so we're in this weird position, which is we are commercial. We're a for-profit enterprise. We're owned by a multi-billion-dollar company. So we certainly had the response, which is like, why should I give you money? You're a for-profit enterprise. And that's an interesting question to have to face. And I think that all commercial operations have to face this question. If you're already a profit-seeking enterprise, you're already getting advertising. Where do you slate, or where do you I'm forgetting the name of the big radio.
Clear Channel?
Where do you, Clear Channel, get off asking us for money? And I think when you have a deep relationship with your listeners or your readers, when you have a relationship which is very personal, where they feel connected to you, where they really wish goodwill to you, and that you are able to have legitimate exchanges with each other, then I think you are in a position to ask them to help support you.
Well,
I think that some entities have that and some don't.
I also think that question is answered every time I pay my cable bill, which is also advertising supported.
Yeah.
So, final question. There's some really great shows produced through Slate, and you guys clearly put a lot of effort into them. How come they're not on the radio?
Well, they are on the radio, actually. Two of them are on the radio. They're on our Political Gabfest and our Culture Gabfest are on the New York Public Radio station, WNYC. We produce a radio version of that. Now it's reaching a relatively small audience. It's reaching a fraction of the number of people it reaches through the podcast. And those listeners don't have the same committed relationship to it. We would love to have our digital audio on the radio, and we've been working with WNYC, and we think there's a big chance to build those audiences, but we don't think it's necessary. The podcast and digital audio are successful, and they're going to be more successful. They're not yet. They don't have the market penetration that radio does. Radio still is listened to by 90+% of Americans, but podcasts are growing, and and particularly in the sort of higher income, higher educated cohort that we tend to reach, they're ever more popular. So we don't think we need a radio presence to succeed. Although if you've got a radio show, if you have some in for us, just let us know. We'll be on in a trice.
Well, I guarantee you, people at WNYC are going to be watching this. Yeah, I wouldn't argue that it's essential for the reasons that you indicate. I do, however, think that where there's a lot of distribution, there's an appetite for great content, and where there's great content, there's an opportunity for great distribution, and that's what I see laying out here. So, for those folks at NYC, come on, guys, get going. Podcast One, you're out there listening. iHeartRadio, National Public Radio, I know you're out there. Get in touch with this man, David Plotz.
Exactly. Thank you.
Editor-in-chief at Slate.com. Best known to me from the Slate Political Gabfest, which I just love, and the new initiative at Slate called Slate Plus, which is fascinating and, as far as I'm concerned, a model for a lot of other people out there in the audio space, not just the podcasting space. David, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for the Gabfest, and thanks for everything at Slate. Sure,
and I would just say, if any of your listeners and readers are here and they want to get the best Slate Plus discount, they can email me directly at david.plotz@slate.com, and I will gladly make sure they get the premium extra discount.
The premium, and what is the premium extra discount? Is it a second
mug?
Well,
you get it. No, there's no second mug. We don't have extra mugs. No, it's a longer. You get it's basically an extra 10% off. You get a longer free part, a longer free portion,
and maybe a T-shirt. Not that I'm doing any negotiation for
you. No, we don't have a good set of T-shirts yet. We're going to develop that. That's all coming.
Okay. David Plotz, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.